One of the things that is heartbreaking is when you see the lives of real people being held hostage as political tools, political tokens, political chips to be gambled with. And Kellyanne Conway, who's still tangentially tied to the White House, went on Fox News and said that there's no, and this has pretty much been the position for a while, but it just hit me this morning, the extent to which the lives of hundreds of thousands of Americans, I'm going to call them Americans because this is where they've grown up, this is where they went to school, this is where they've lived, this is where they work jobs, this is where they pay taxes, this is where some of them served in the military. Hundreds of thousands of young Americans who came here, their parents brought them here, and they've been undocumented, they can't become citizens, or they have to have a path to, however you want to describe them, the dreamers. Their lives are now being held hostage in order to get funding for the Mexican wall, the border wall. The wall that Donald Trump said was going to be paid for by Mexico. We all knew that it wasn't going to be paid for by Mexico. This isn't surprising. This isn't breaking news. But if you just think about how callous of a human being you have to be to willingly use, to look at these people as poker chips, right? That you don't really care about their conditions whatsoever. But you're going to use them as collateral, saying if you want to do anything to help these children, these young adults, then you're going to have to find funding for the wall. Now, here's the thing about it. They have the numbers that they need in Congress to do whatever they want to do, unless it has to be tied to reconciliation, which I think we're already outside of that window. No, we are outside of that window. So I'm not really sure why this is being presented as a bargaining chip, except to say that it just continues this crazed, deranged obsession with the other. I'm not even going to say Mexicans or foreigners, because the otherification actually transcends even nationality. You could be an American citizen. We've seen time and time again American citizens who are spoken to and treated as other simply because they aren't white conservative Christians. And this play by the Trump administration that's brought to my attention by Kellyanne Conway's interview this morning is really just another day in complete dehumanization of an entire segment of our society. And this is not shocking nor breaking news, but what it is just a really salient reminder that people who cry and make their entire political participation based off of being pro-life, and they make their entire political participation based off of family values, and they base their entire political participation based off of morality, have absolutely no problem dehumanizing an entire segment of our society and using them like they're damn poker chips. Think about this, right? This actually this goes beyond the dreamers, right? They do the same thing with everyone. They don't view any of us as useful as humans. They view us rather as useful tokens and useful fodder and just coins that they can use to get their political agenda across. And yet these are the people who are, think about the CHIP program, Children's Health Insurance Program, which still doesn't have funding, which means 9 million children across the United States will potentially lose their health care, they are in the process of losing their health care. And yet the people who are so concerned with doing away with abortions, they are the cause of this. The people who are so concerned with a child before they're born have zero concern. And actually, not only is it that they don't care about you after you're born, they're willing to use you as a political bargaining chip. Senior citizens, what they're getting ready to do with Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, but particularly Medicare, what they're getting ready to do there, in this category, they're not even bargaining chips. They don't even care. They're not saying do X or else we're going to cut Medicare. They're saying, Paul Ryan is expressly saying, we're going to cut Medicare. Just pause and think about this. These are the conversations that we have to have with people who on a daily basis swear that their political participation is based on moral values, that their political participation is based on, some contrived notion of Christianity, right? All of this, but you simply do not care about your brother or your sister. And God forbid, you don't care about the non-gender conforming community. So this blows me. It blows me away in so much as it's a daily reminder that lives genuinely do not matter to this group, except to the extent that they can use us to get what they want. And in this case, no DACA without funding for the wall. And that's just today. What do we have to give up in order for us to get CHIP? What do we have to give up in order for us to get funding for children's health care? What's the negotiating tool? Orrin Hatch, who's stepped down or is stepping down from his Senate seat for the state of Utah, prided himself on being one of the leaders who brought CHIP in a bipartisan fashion back with Kennedy, Ted Kennedy. They worked together and created the CHIP program. And Orrin Hatch was was on the floor debating with Sherrod Brown, and we played that clip for you where Orrin Hatch was like, "Well, one of the reasons we don't have any more money, we can't afford CHIP anymore because we don't have any more money." Meanwhile, they're cutting taxes and creating a $1.5 trillion addition to the deficit, but they can't afford the few billions that are necessary to maintain the CHIP program. Right? So he's stepping down, and it just shows you that all of the place that we've come from and the place that it's led to is a place that I can't say that politicians in America have always been, right? We're in a hyper-partisan era in America. We're so hyper-partisan where they do not care about their own programs. They do not care about their own programs. They only care to the extent that they can get a win for their donors, first and foremost. They can get a win for their bottom line, their personal economy. They can get a financial fiscal win for themselves, but then also can they get a win for their team, which is more important than anything else to them, getting those tax breaks for themselves and getting a quote unquote win for their team. And these are the people the reason I keep reiterating this is because at some point in this journey of American politics, we should be able to break free from this notion that conservatives represent morality in America. Right? That conservative evangelical Christians participating in the Republican Party represent the epitome of moral participation in American politics. We have to be able to break away from that because it's right here in front of our eyes. Human life means nothing to them, abortions mean nothing to the Republican Party only to the extent that they can use it to galvanize the vote. Because if it really mattered to them, then they would address the issues for which women and families and couples who make those difficult decisions, they would address the issues for which they have to make those decisions, which overwhelmingly is an economic issue for so many. But we have to, going back to the main point is if we don't find a way to break lose this notion, this pervasive idea that morality in the United States is represented by Christian evangelicals and Christian evangelicals who participate in the Republican Party, particularly, then we'll forever have people who can go on television and say, dreamers, you can't stay in America unless Congress gives us funding for the wall. Children, 9 million children who need health insurance. You don't get health insurance unless we get X, Y, and Z. And first and foremost, you're not going to get that because the most important thing, you do understand the reason we lost funding for CHIP was because they were focused like a laser on repealing Obamacare. And then they ran out of time. They simply ran out of time to renew the funding on CHIP. Right. So that's the reason. But have you noticed that they haven't done anything whatsoever to actually fix the problem that they created? Nothing. And so now 9 million children, some of your children, some of the people listening to me have children who need this program. I know quite a few people whose children are on this program, and 9 million of them are going to lose coverage. There's already, I believe, Delaware, if I'm not mistaken, and I could be mistaken, I'm going off the top of my head, but there's like a rolling process of funding. State by state by state, they're losing funding for childcare for children of poor families. And you know what? It doesn't matter. It only matters to the extent. That people, human beings, real individuals with real lives. See, it's this dehumanization process is so effective, right? And we are already desensitized to other nations, right? This is how we can, particularly non-Western nations or particularly non-European nations specifically, we are desensitized to seeing massacres over there. We'll cry for France, but we won't cry for 200 students that were killed in Nigeria because we've dehumanized them. And that's kind of how it's been probably through the entire existence of the United States. It's hard to have empathy for people who are, one, far away, but then two, don't look like the majority, three, have a different religion. But now we've moved that dehumanization process here to the United States where we really don't have any empathy, hell, for each other across the board. I mean, mass shootings happen every single week, and we don't even care anymore. But now it's going one step further. Not only do we not care about people who have been killed in these streets because of gun violence, we don't even care about the children, right? We don't even think about them. It's not even an afterthought. The 9 million real children, cute ass little babies running around here, rosy cheeks, beautiful little things. We don't even care that they are losing their health care, only to the extent that we can get a political gain from it. And now, of course, if we don't care about the children, what makes you think we care about the dreamers? Because they are they're perfectly in the position to be otherfied, if I can make that word up. Like they don't belong here. They're not one of us. They're not part of our civilization. So sure, it means nothing. It means nothing to reduce them down to just the name of the bill that would protect them, DACA. And yet, those are the people who represent, morality in the United States.